Like and subscribe to Sinister Shadows Studio, The Haunting of Halloween Night. Halloween had always been my favorite holiday. As a child, I reveled in the excitement of dressing up, carving pumpkins, and the promise of a night filled with thrills and candy. But one Halloween night, something happened that would forever change the way I saw the holiday. I was 18 years old, too old for trick-or-treating, but still young enough to join my friends in the pursuit of Halloween mischief. We lived in a small town where everyone knew everyone else, and the legend of the Wraith House had always been a part of our Halloween lore. The Wraith House was an old, dilapidated mansion at the edge of town. It had stood vacant for as long as anyone could remember, and its very presence was enough to send shivers down your spine. The stories surrounding it were the stuff of nightmares, whispers of eerie apparitions, strange sounds, and unexplained phenomena. That Halloween night, my friends and I decided to venture to the Wraith House for the ultimate Halloween scare. Armed with flashlights, masks, and a healthy dose of bravado, we made our way through the moonlit woods that surrounded the mansion. The air was thick with an eerie stillness as we approached the mansion's imposing wrought iron gates. They groaned in protest as we pushed them open, and the path beyond was overgrown with twisted, thorny vines. The mansion itself was a decrepit monstrosity, its once grand facade marred by broken windows and rotting wood. It loomed over us like a malevolent specter, and a sense of foreboding settled in the pit of my stomach. As we ventured inside, our flashlights cast eerie, shifting shadows on the peeling wallpaper. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and our footsteps echoed loudly in the silence. The first floor was a labyrinth of dark corridors and dilapidated rooms. We took turns dawing each other to explore the gloomiest corners, but as we delved deeper into the mansion, an unsettling feeling of being watched descended upon us. The second floor was where the true horror awaited. We entered a grand, decaying ballroom, with a chandelier that hung like a twisted skeletal spider from the ceiling. In the center of the room was a grand piano, its keys yellowed and cracked with age. As we approached the piano, the air grew frigid, and an otherworldly melody filled the room. It was as if the piano played itself, its keys moving with an ethereal touch. We exchanged terrified glances, but no one dared to speak. It was a haunting, mournful tune that seemed to seep into our very souls. Suddenly, the chandelier above us began to swing violently, casting a chaotic dance of shadows on the walls. The room seemed to close in on us, and a sense of suffocating dread settled over the group. That's when we heard it, the faint whisper of a child's voice, a plea for help that sent shivers down our spines. It seemed to emanate from a nearby closet, and as we opened the creaking door, we were greeted by a sight that would haunt our nightmares. Inside the closet, a child's ghostly figure stood, her eyes hollow, and her expression filled with despair. She was dressed in tattered clothing, and her voice trembled as she spoke. She told us her name was Eliza, and that she had been trapped in the mansion for decades. Eliza's story was one of tragedy. She had lived in the Wraith House with her family, but an unexplained fire had claimed their lives on Halloween night many years ago. Her spirit had been trapped in the mansion ever since, longing for release. Tears welled up in our eyes as we listened to Eliza's sorrowful tale. She implored us to help her find peace, to end the curse that bound her to the mansion. We couldn't refuse her desperate plea. Eliza guided us through the labyrinthine corridors of the mansion, leading us to a hidden room on the third floor. There, we discovered a dusty old journal that revealed the tragic events of that fateful Halloween night. It detailed a ritual gone horribly wrong, one that had bound Eliza's spirit to the mansion. With trembling hands, we followed the instructions in the journal to break the curse. The air grew charged with an otherworldly energy, and the room seemed to vibrate with a powerful force. Eliza's figure began to glow, and she let out a haunting, ethereal wail that filled the entire mansion. As we watched in awe and terror, Eliza's spirit ascended, vanishing into the ceiling, and with her, the curse that had plagued the Wraith House for decades. We left the mansion that Halloween night, forever changed by our encounter with Eliza's ghost. Halloween had transformed from a night of harmless fun into a night of profound supernatural experiences. It was a night that would haunt us for the rest of our lives, a reminder that sometimes, the most chilling tales are the ones that become all too real. The Halloween Nightmare at Hollowbrook Farm. Halloween had always been a time of delight, a night when the world embraced the eerie and the mysterious. But one Halloween, my fascination with the holiday turned into a chilling ordeal that would haunt me forever. My name is Michael, and I had moved to the quiet countryside where my family had purchased an old farmhouse known as Hollowbrook Farm. The house was a picturesque relic with its white picket fence, sprawling fields, and an atmosphere that seemed to invite Halloween celebrations. In the days leading up to Halloween, my excitement grew. I was determined to host an unforgettable Halloween party for my friends and the local children. We spent hours decorating the farmhouse with cobwebs, skeletons, and carved pumpkins, and the anticipation of the night filled the air. As darkness descended on Halloween evening, a palpable excitement filled the farmhouse. Children in costumes gathered with their parents, and my friends arrived dressed as ghouls and monsters. We had games, treats, and eerie decorations galore, all the ingredients for a perfect Halloween night. As the festivities began, I noticed a mysterious undertone to the evening. Unusual occurrences seemed to plague our party. Candles flickered and extinguished themselves, eerie whispers echoed in the still air, and strange shadows danced along the walls. But the most unsettling incident occurred when the children embarked on a traditional game of bobbing for apples. As they dunked their heads into the water-filled tub, I watched in horror as their reflections in the water distorted into ghastly visages. Each child's reflection revealed a gruesome skeletal face, their hollow eyes staring back at them in terror. Panic erupted among the children, and parents hurriedly scooped them up, rushing them away from the farmhouse. My friends exchanged fearful glances, but we brushed off the incident as a mere Halloween prank, dismissing the unease that lingered in the air. Determined to salvage the night, we moved on to carving pumpkins. The laughter and camaraderie eased our anxiety, and the soft glow of candlelight cast a warm ambiance. As we admired our creations, we noticed a pumpkin that seemed out of place. One pumpkin, left unpicked, bore an eerie resemblance to the face of a man none of us recognized. Its sinister smile, etched into the orange flesh, sent chills down our spines. We had no memory of carving it, and none of us could recall placing it on the table. Fear gnawed at our resolve, but we continued with the party, hoping to regain a sense of normalcy. We told ghost stories, played games, and tried to dismiss the unsettling events that had marred the night. But as midnight approached, the atmosphere in the farmhouse grew heavier, and a sense of dread settled over us like a shroud. The temperature plummeted, and the candles flickered as if struggling against an unseen force. That's when we heard it, the haunting melody of a music box. The music emanated from the darkness of the farmhouse, growing louder and more melancholic with each passing moment. It was a tune none of us recognized, and it filled the room with an unsettling sense of foreboding. We followed the sound to its source, an antique music box that sat on a dusty shelf. The box seemed to play on its own, its delicate key turning by an unseen hand. As we approached, the music swelled to a haunting crescendo, and the room seemed to close in on us. In the mirror hanging nearby, we caught a glimpse of a figure, a woman in a tattered, blood-stained gown. She stood behind us, her eyes hollow, her face etched with sorrow. She reached out as if imploring us for help, her voice a mournful whisper. "Please, you must help me," she implored. "I've been trapped here for so long." The room seemed to spin, and a sense of urgency overcame us. We knew we had to unravel the mystery surrounding this ghostly apparition and the sinister events that had plagued our Halloween party. As we delved into the history of Hollowbrook Farm, we uncovered a tale of tragedy and deceit. The woman in the mirror was Eleanor, a farmer's daughter who had lived on the farm centuries ago. She had fallen in love with a man from a rival family, leading to a bitter feud that ended in a bloody massacre on Halloween night. Eleanor's spirit had been trapped in a cursed music box, her soul bound to the farmhouse until someone could free her. The pumpkin we had discovered was a vessel for dark magic, one that had allowed her to communicate with us and seek our help. With newfound determination, we embarked on a quest to release Eleanor's spirit and break the curse that had tormented the farm for generations. Armed with knowledge from a mysterious old book, we conducted a ritual that would set her free. The air grew charged with energy as we chanted the incantation, and the music box began to play a mournful tune one last time. Eleanor's figure materialized before us, her expression filled with gratitude and relief. As she ascended into the ethereal realm, the farmhouse trembled, and the curse that had plagued it for centuries was finally lifted. Our Halloween night ended with a sense of closure, and though we had experienced horrors beyond imagination, we had also helped a tormented soul find peace. Halloween would never be the same for us, for we had tasted the true essence of the supernatural, and it had forever altered our perception of the holiday and mysterious. But one fateful Halloween night, I experienced a terrifying encounter that shattered my love for the holiday. My name is Laura, and I lived in a charming old farmhouse nestled in a picturesque little town called Hollowville. Our town was famous for its elaborate Halloween celebrations, and every year, my family and I eagerly participated in the festivities. On this particular Halloween night, the air was filled with the scent of bonfires and the laughter of children in costumes. My parents had set up a haunted house in our barn, complete with eerie decorations and creepy sound effects. I had volunteered to help guide visitors through the spooky maze. As the night wore on, the crowds grew larger, and the atmosphere inside the haunted barn grew more electric. I was dressed as a witch, my face painted green, and my costume adorned with tattered robes. I had a blast leading groups of giggling kids and brave adults through the twists and turns of our spooky maze. However, as the clock ticked closer to midnight, I noticed something peculiar. A sense of unease settled in my stomach, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the shadows. I chalked it up to nerves, but the sensation persisted. With a nervous laugh, I led another group of visitors into the darkest corner of the maze. Just as we turned a corner, the lights flickered and went out. Panic swept through the group as darkness enveloped us, and I fumbled for my flashlight. The beam of my flashlight revealed a sinister sight, a figure dressed in tattered rags, their face obscured by a mask of stitched-together fabric. They stood in the shadows, unmoving, their presence sending a chill down my spine. "Who are you?" I stammered, my voice quivering. The figure didn't respond, but a raspy, unnatural breathing filled the air. I urged the group to retreat, but the figure advanced, its movements jerky and unsettling. Panic surged through me as I realized something was horribly wrong. My flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows on the walls. I could barely make out the faces of the terrified visitors huddled behind me. We were trapped in the darkness with this ominous intruder. I tried to lead the group back the way we had come, but the maze seemed to have shifted. The path we had taken was now blocked, and I could hear the figure closing in behind us. Panic set in as we stumbled through the maze, disoriented and desperate to escape. As we turned another corner, we found ourselves in a small, dimly lit chamber. The walls were covered in grotesque paintings, and the air was heavy with an eerie silence. I realized with a sinking feeling that we were no longer in the haunted barn. We had entered an entirely different place, a place that reeked of malevolence. The figure in the mask stood in the center of the chamber, its breathing growing louder and more labored. I could feel its malevolent intent, and terror washed over me as I realized the danger we were in. With a trembling hand, I managed to send out a distress call on my phone, praying that someone would come to our rescue. But there was no signal, no connection to the outside world. The group huddled together in fear, and I tried to reassure them that help would come soon. But deep down, I knew that we were trapped in a nightmare, and the figure in the mask was the stuff of our darkest fears. As the minutes stretched into an eternity, the figure began to move closer. Its movements were grotesque, as if it had no control over its own body. It reached out a trembling hand, and I could see something glinting in the dim light, an old rusted knife. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized the figure's intent. It was closing in on us, and there was no way out. I thought of my family, waiting for me outside the haunted barn, and I prayed that they would find us in time. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, a door appeared in one of the chamber's walls, a door that had not been there before. Without hesitation, I urged the group to follow me, and we fled through the door, leaving the sinister figure behind. We found ourselves back in the haunted barn, the lights restored, and the sounds of the Halloween celebration outside filled the air. It was as if we had never left. The group was shaken, but unharmed, and I couldn't explain the bizarre experience we had just endured. I later learned that the figure in the mask had disappeared without a trace. There were no signs of an intruder, no evidence of their presence in the haunted barn or the mysterious chamber. Halloween Hollow had always been a place of enchantment, but that night, it had revealed a dark and terrifying side. I couldn't shake the feeling that the sinister figure in the mask had been more than a mere prankster, and I couldn't help but wonder what malevolent force had brought us to that nightmarish chamber. Since that Halloween night, I've never looked at the holiday the same way again. The enchantment of Halloween had given way to a deep sense of unease, a reminder that even in the midst of celebration, darkness can lurk just around the corner. Like and subscribe to Sinister Shadows Studio.